for the speed, reach for the whistle, go where the rail may run. Reach for the words, reach for the story, follow the rainbow sun.
Oh, hey! I didn't see you guys there. Now, you guys know who I am by now. I'm Tyler from the Character Workshop, blah 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 blah. So, I feel like today would be a perfect opportunity for me to cover Thomas and the Magic Railroad, seeing that this year is 2020 and it is the 20th anniversary of Thomas and the Magic Railroad. And that movie first came out in July 2000 in a variety of places. First off, it came out July 14th in the UK, and it came out July 26th here in the US, so I feel like now is the perfect time to cover it, and plus this year is also the 75th anniversary of the Railway series, which is the series of books that Thomas and Friends is based off of, so this will be a double anniversary celebration. But without further ado, time for me to cover Thomas and the Magic Railroad. So, around 1994, Thomas and Friends was a very successful show in both the UK and the US. In the US especially thanks to the show Shining Time Station. And Britt Allcroft, the creator of both shows, decided to have an idea to make a feature film based on both Thomas and Friends and Shining Time Station. And she would decide to use the model trains that they used on the Thomas TV show, and of course the live-action aesthetic of Shining Time Station. 2 years later, in 1996, Britt Allcroft approached the chairman of Paramount Pictures in order to make the Thomas movie. And the filming would have took place at Shepperton Studios in the UK, which of course was the original studio that made Thomas and Friends. And the movie was originally going to come out in 1997. However, the original chairman of Paramount Pictures at the time, which was Barry London, decided to leave the company, so Paramount then shelved away the ideas for the movie. So then Britt Allcroft decided to look at other studios to see which ones will be interested in making the Thomas movie. And eventually they were able to get Destination Films to, you know, make the movie, which of course Destiny Films is owned by Sony. Then in the summer of 1998, when Season 5 of the Thomas and Friends TV series was being made, Britt Allcroft saw an advertisement for an Isle of Man film commission, and they were offering tax incentives to companies wanting to film on that island. And Britt visited the island, and she thought it was the perfect location for the movie. And yeah, earlier when I was talking about Destination Films, I didn't realize this, but Barry London, who was the former chairman of Paramount, he was the chairman of Destination Films, and he was still interested in making the movie, and yeah, that's how Thomas and the Magic Railroad came to be. But without further ado, now time to talk about the plot. So the movie, in certain areas, is told from the perspective of a character by the name of Mr. Conductor, who in Thomas and the Magic Railroad is played by Alec Baldwin. And if you guys know Alec Baldwin pretty well, he was also the narrator of both Season 5 and Season 6 of Thomas and Friends for the American dub. And Mr. Conductor was a character on Shining Time Station that was previously played by Ringo Starr in the first season and George Carlin in Seasons 2 and 3. So Mr. Conductor narrated the story, and the story starts with Sir Topham Hatt and his family leaving the island of Sodor for a holiday, which meant that Mr. Conductor was going to take over in charge of the engines while Sir Topham Hatt was gone. And meanwhile, Gordon and Thomas were talking, and Gordon was complaining to Thomas about how he was running late. And meanwhile, while they were talking, a diesel by the name of Diesel 10 then goes by and scares both of them and announces that he has some unfinished business to do, which I will get to in a little bit. And then not even like 2 or 3 minutes since the movie has started, we automatically cut to another location of the movie. These are like pretty much the two main locations for the Thomas and the Magic Railroad movie. The Island of Sodor and Shining Time. So the movie then cuts to Shining Time, where we see Mr. Conductor finally in full form, suffering from quite a problem. His supply of magic gold dust is now very low, and unfortunately he doesn't have enough magic gold dust to take him, from Sodor all the way back to Shining Time. And then we immediately cut back to the island of Sodor, and this is basically where one of the main problems of the movie starts to come into play. The fact that they, go from one place to the other, like, pretty quickly. They only spend, like, what, a few minutes in each area? It just, first of all, it's really confusing for, like, some of the younger audiences who, this movie's intended for, so there's that, and overall just doesn't really make too much sense, but anyways, I haven't even finished talking about the plot of the movie, and I'm already kind of critiquing it a little bit. But as we get back to the island of Sodor, at Timoth's Sheds, which is basically where the engines go to stay after they're done with their work, Thomas and James were talking to each other relating to the buffers, and Diesel 10 then arrives and announces his plan to the two that he plans to get rid of all of the steam engines on the island of Sodor. And of course, finding and destroying the lost engine, who apparently is the key to basically the main reason why all the steam engines live in peace. However, the so-called lost engine that Diesel 10 mentions to Thomas and James isn't really that lost at all. This engine is actually in the Shining Time universe, where they're basically in a workshop in Muffled Mountain, being taken care of by Burnett Stone, played by Peter Fonda, who apparently Diesel 10 was after the lost engine before, but they were able to escape, but unfortunately the engine is unable to produce any steam because the area that Burnett's in doesn't have the right kind of coal for the lost engine. And of course they later revealed that the lost engine is named Lady. Mr. Conductor then eventually arrives on the island of Sodor and gets picked up by Thomas and immediately goes to do what he's been told to do by Sir Topham Hatt. And then that night he spent the night at Timoth's Sheds alongside the rest of the engines. However, Diesel 10 then comes by and basically destroys the side of it with his claw, which he nicknames Pinchy. Mr. Conductor then tries to keep him in order and also tries to teleport away from Diesel 10 with his gold dust. However, he finds out that he no longer has his gold dust. However, luckily for Mr. Conductor, he was able to scare Diesel 10 away by threatening to pour a bag of sugar into his fuel tanks. Diesel 10 then goes away, yelling to Mr. Conductor, "Make the most of tonight, Twinkle Toes, because you won't like tomorrow." And afterwards, the engines were questioning Mr. Conductor about, like, his gold dust, and Mr. Conductor was like, "Oh, don't worry about it, I'm sure I'll be able to find it." And then goes to sleep. However, he has a dream about Shining Time Station being in ruins now that he's no longer there and won't be able to teleport back to Shining Time Station because he no longer has the gold dust. He wakes up from his dream, realizing how really bad this is, and then goes to try and find more gold dust. So then we go back into the real world, where we get introduced to this character by the name of Lily, who is Burnett's granddaughter, played by Mara Wilson. And her role, at first, she was going to visit Burnett's, and there was a scene at a different train station, and she meets a dog that pretty much lived around Shining Time Station, and the dog was named Mutt. Mutt led Lily to a different train that actually led to Shining Time Station instead of where she was planning on going in order to meet her grandfather. Back on Sodor, I'm sure you guys can probably see a recurring trend in this review. The steam engines all gather around Timoth's Sheds, overhearing about Diesel 10's plans to try and destroy Lady once and for all. And unaware to them, Diesel 10's two sidekicks, Splatter and Dodge, which Diesel 10 himself nicknames Splodge because, according to him, he has no time to say both names. But anyways, both of his minions were spying on all the engines about their plans to try and find Lady before Diesel 10 does. Mr. Conductor, however, was on a different part of the island of Sodor, where he's trying to find the windmill, which is basically where he will go to figure out how to get more gold dust. However, the spot that the windmill normally isn't there, and Mr. Conductor tries to figure out where the windmill actually is. And this led to a pretty interesting scene where he got a note from like a rabbit. Yes, apparently there are sentient rabbits in the Thomas universe. But he got a note from the rabbits talking about some vegetables that'll apparently get him to figure out where the windmill could possibly be. And he eats them, and then eventually, you know, says a bunch of random words until he figures out how to get to the windmill. Mr. Conductor then goes to call his cousin Junior, played by Michael E. Rogers, to help out with their gold dust crisis. And before they made the call, this is part of the movie I found to be really interesting. Apparently bellflowers on the island of Sodor, that's right, actual bellflowers, are used as like phones in that universe. Like, kind of in the format of like an old school, like, you know, phone, how you put like, you know, one thing for your ear, then one thing to talk into. It's really interesting. Not like the kind of stuff we use nowadays, but yeah. So while Mr. Conductor was telling Junior about the limited supply they now have of gold dust, he tells Junior to go to Shine Time Station to get Mr. Conductor's spare emergency supply of gold dust and travel to the island of Sodor to help Mr. Conductor out of trying to figure out their dilemma with the gold dust. However, at Shine Time Station, this is a part of the story where we now go back to Shine Time Station. Lily then gets off the train that led to Shine Time. She was pretty confused, like, Shine Time? Is this where I'm supposed to be? And this is where she meets Junior and then Stacy Jones, who was a character from Shine Time Station, played by Dee Khan, who was, yeah, the only actress from Shine Time Station that actually returned to play as their character in the movie, so that's really interesting. But Stacy Jones took Lily to Burnett's house using her car, and yeah, she got to be with Burnett now. So later that night on the island of Sodor, Thomas and Percy, who were at Nafford Station, basically figured out that there was apparently a secret railway that was linked between Sodor and Shining Time. Diesel 10 overheard this conversation and went to the smelter's yard to tell Splatter and Dodge about it. Thomas gets like a weird feeling like, ugh, I'm shivering, Diesel 10 must be around. Toby then comes by and says, oh, don't worry, I'll go after them and figure out what they're planning on doing. With Percy saying to Toby, oh, you're real brave, Toby. We then see Toby spying on Diesel 10, Splatter, and Dodge as Diesel 10 explains his plans to the two about destroying Lady. And to distract him, Toby decides to ring his bell. Diesel 10 notices and he was like, oh, it's that T-Bot, let's smash him. And then his claw, like, you know, knocked over one of the supports of the shed and it toppled over all three of them. Toby then laughed and just went away with Splatter and Dodge saying, boss, did you mean to do that? And then Diesel 10's like, I always mean what I do. And then the next morning, Thomas goes to collect 6 coal trucks for Henry, who's feeling under the weather like usual. And, however, one of the trucks that he bumps into accidentally rolls off and goes through the buffers that led to the secret railway. Thomas then, you know, goes along with the 5 coal trucks. Birdie, the bus, points out to him, hey, Thomas, and your 5 coal trucks? And Thomas is like, 5? But I only got 6. And then we see Mr. Conductor still looking for the windmill. It's funny, it's been like, what, a day or two since Mr. Conductor left him at sheds, and I find it kind of funny that the engines, you know, haven't really bothered too much trying to find him. Like, who's been, you know, running the railway while Mr. Conductor's been trying to find the windmill? I don't know. But anyways, Mr. Conductor was caught by Diesel 10, and Diesel 10 grabs him with the claw, and then threatens to drop Mr. Conductor off of a viaduct if he doesn't tell Diesel 10 about the secret of the magic buffers and the magic railway. However, Mr. Conductor was able to get himself free by using a bunch of tin snips to cut one of Diesel 10's gasoline pipes, which is thrown free, like the claw just randomly threw Mr. Conductor somewhere else, and he lands at the windmill. And then Mr. Conductor then breaks the fourth wall to the audience saying, "Did you leave all this here for me? That means you must have knew I was coming." "Oh, the windmill. I call that a perfect landing." And Mr. Conductor then finally finds a clue to help him find the source of the gold dust. While Lily was around the area that Burnett was living, she was greeted by Patch, who was played by Cody McGaines, who is a character who works alongside Shining Time, and he takes her to Shining Time, where Lily once again meets Junior, and Junior decides to take Lily through the Magic Railroad onto the island of Sodor. And then we see Thomas actually looking for Mr. Conductor, and he thinks he sees Mr. Conductor, but it actually turns out to be Junior, which Thomas wasn't as pleased about. But Thomas then agrees to help Junior and Lily get to the windmill, where, funnily enough, Mr. Conductor actually was. While Mr. Conductor was discussing to the characters about the riddle that he saw while he was at the windmill about the source of the gold dust, Junior decides to climb onto one of the sails of the windmill just for the fun of it. However, it was a very windy day and the windmill kept spinning and spinning. Junior was then thrown off the windmill and landed on top of Diesel 10's roof, which we'll get more on that section of the story later on. Later that night, Percy goes and finds that Splatter and Dodge have found the entrance to the Magic Railroad, and goes to warn Thomas, Mr. Conductor, and Lily about this. And then Thomas agrees to take Lily back to Shining Time, and they went through the magic buffers into the Magic Railroad. While they were there, Thomas discovers the missing coal truck from earlier that day, which was supposed to be for Henry, which he then decides to collect. Lily then goes to find Burnett as soon as they get to the Shining Time realm, leaving Thomas stranded and by himself. And then the hill then collapses, and then Thomas then rolls down the mountain and re-enters the Magic Railroad through another secret portal. And then we cut back to the point in the story where Junior was on top of Diesel 10's roof. And it really made me question, you know, Junior spent a whole day on top of Diesel 10's roof. How come, you know, did Diesel 10 ever try to stop? Did he ever try to, like, you know, get Junior off of his roof? I mean, Diesel 10 had to have stopped at some point to refuel on oil. Like, I'm sure if, like, Diesel 10, you know, stopped somewhere, Junior would have took that opportunity just to jump off of him, but I don't know, it's kind of weird. But anyways, at the smelter's yard, Diesel 10 and Junior then go inside. Diesel 10 then stops right in front of James. Junior then flies and then lands on top of James. And just when, you know, James and Junior thought that they were all being cornered, Junior then decides to use Mr. Conductor's spare supply of gold dust to get him and James away from Diesel 10. And they were successful. James left, and Junior was reunited with Mr. Conductor. While in the Shining Time universe, Lily then finds Burnett and tells him about the problem about Lady, and then Burnett said, you know, I wish I can, you know, get her to work, but I've tried every coal in the valley and nothing works. Lily then suggests that they can use the coal from Sodor, since the coal truck that Thomas got from earlier is still on top of the mountain. So Patch then decided to get the coal and then bring it back, and all of them were able to use the coal on Lady, and they were able to go through the Magic Railroad. And then all the characters meet Thomas once again, and yes, he was still in the Magic Railroad. It honestly makes me wonder what he was doing down there while he was waiting for somebody to help him out, but I don't know. But eventually, all the characters made it back to the island of Sodor to meet with Junior and Mr. Conductor. Diesel 10 then finds Lady and Thomas and then goes after them. And however, Splatter and Dodge decided to not help him. First of all, this was never explained. Like, how come out of all the times that, like, you know, they've been with Diesel 10, they decided to, like, you know, now was the time to, like, you know, stop working with him? They're like, oh yeah, boss, you know, we don't like working with you anymore. Yeah, you can take care of this problem yourself. And Diesel 10 will probably be like, Since when did you two decided to, like, you know, go against me now? And, yeah, it's just... I kind of wish that was explained a little bit more, but anyways, Diesel 10 then goes after Lady and Thomas, and probably one of the most memorable parts about the movie was the chase scene with all three characters. And eventually this led all three of them to enter the viaduct, and while Lady and Thomas were able to make it past the viaduct just in time, unfortunately for Diesel 10, the viaduct eventually, you know, starts crumbling, and of course, it couldn't handle Diesel 10's weight, and Diesel 10 then falls off, and then lands on a barge filled with sludge. Now, something I forgot to mention earlier when I was talking about the chase scene, but Burnett Stone was actually riding aboard Lady while they were both being chased by Diesel 10. So Burnett, Lady, and Thomas then all return, and then after remembering the rest of the clue that Mr. Conductor got when he was at the windmill, they all decided to, like, you know, get the magic gold dust finally. And Lily then combines water from the wishing well nearby and shavings from the magic railroad while she and the others were riding from Shiny Time Station to Sodor. And they eventually all made more gold dust, and Junior and Mr. Conductor were able to get their gold dust back. Junior then decides that he was interested in working on Sodor, and Mr. Conductor then gives him his conductor hat to Junior, and then sends Junior to another railway to work on for the time being. And then Lily, Burnett, Patch, and Mutt, that was another thing I forgot to mention, the dog, Mutt, was along with them. Not like he really contributed that much to the story anyway, but anyways, they all return to Shiny Time. Lady then returns to the Magic Railroad to protect it once again, and Thomas, of course, travels back home into the sunset. Whew! Man, that was a lot to talk about. And, that's kind of where one of the main criticisms of, Thomas and the Magic Railroad start to come into play, is, the confusing plots. You know, there was, like, so many different things going on in the plots that, like, you know, people were like, oh, it's pretty confusing, and it's, especially confusing for the younger audiences who this movie was intended for, and yeah, I honestly don't blame them. There were a lot of, you know, confusing portions of the plots. There were a bunch of plot holes, like, when Mr. Conductor says that the gold dust was, like, the only way to get from, like, you know, the island of Sodor to Shine Time Station, and then vice versa. However, you can literally just, like, you know, travel there from the magic buffers. I don't know, I don't know why Mr. Conductor didn't think about that. Now, I honestly can't talk about Thomas and the Magic Railroad without talking about a lot of the changes that were made between the initial draft and the final project. So, one of the things that's most noticeable between the original version and the theatrical release was a character from the original version that didn't make the cut into the theatrical movie. And that character was by the name of P.T. Boomer, played by Doug Lennox, who was actually going to be the original main bad guy in the movie besides Diesel 10. And yeah, a lot of the problems with the plots that were in the theatrical version were supposed to be caused by P.T. Boomer, like, for example, that scene with Thomas, you know, falling off the mountain. In the original movie, that was done by P.T. Boomer, as he probably knew that Thomas and Lily were up there. And yeah, in the official movie, the mountain just randomly just crumbled and Thomas fell off. And the main reason why this character, P.T. Boomer, was removed from the movie was because test audiences at a Los Angeles preview screening considered the character, like, too scary for young children. And as a result, as I've mentioned before, a lot of the major plots went unexplained now that he's no longer in the movie. Another thing about the movie that was supposed to be a thing that was in the original but not in the theatrical version, the movie was actually going to be narrated by Lily instead of Mr. Conductor, which I don't know how that would have worked out, but I guess it was supposed to be, you know, Lily was telling the story of Thomas and the Magic Railroad to her future children, and eventually she got married to the character Patch, which I guess if the movie went along with that plot, it would have kind of given Patch a bit more of a reason to be in the movie, because he wasn't really, you know, that much of an important part in the movie, in my opinion, so I guess that would have given him some much more recognition. And also, Thomas's voice actor for the movie was originally going to be voiced by John Bellis, who was a British fireman and a part-time taxi driver, who worked on the Isle of Man transportation, which was where Thomas the Magic Railroad was filmed. And John Bellis was actually chosen by accident, as he was picking up Britt Alcroft and the crew from the Isle of Man airports, and Alcroft heard his voice and was like, you know, I think he would be the perfect voice actor for Thomas. However, test audiences, you know, thought that John Bellis' voice for Thomas made him sound too old, so instead, in the actual movie, they got Thomas to be voiced by Edward Glenn. And Bellis, however, did receive on-screen credit as a transportation coordinator, and you can actually still hear his voice in the original UK trailer of the movie. John Bellis, however, was pretty crushed and angered by some of the changes that were made to the movie. However, he did wish the filmmakers well regardless, so that's good at least. And also, Michael Angelis, who is the longtime UK narrator of Thomas and Friends between Season 3 and Season 16, they were originally considering him to be the voice of James and Percy in the movie, but just like with John Bellis, the audiences felt that his voice sounded too old for both characters. So instead, James was voiced by Sailor Moon voice actress Susan Roman, and Percy was voiced by Canadian voice actress Linda Valentine. And to be honest, like, out of all like the cast changes that were made, you know, between the original draft and the finished version, I honestly kind of wish they went with Michael Angelis as the voice for both James and Percy. As, you know, we've gotten Alec Baldwin to play the role of Mr. Conductor, and he was the narrator for the American dub for Season 5 and 6. It would make sense to have the long-running UK narrator, Michael Angelis, you know, be a part of the movie as well, so that was honestly really disappointing. Especially with James. Like, I don't think, you know, a female voice fits that well with James. I do kind of think it fits a little bit more with Percy, but, like, definitely not so much with James. And the funny story about this, as a kid, I'm talking about personal experiences, but as a kid, I always thought James for a while was a female. No joke. I actually thought James was a girl. And you want to know why? Thomas the Magic Railroad was one of the main reasons why I thought James was a female character. And also the way Alec Baldwin did his voice in the Season 5 narration of the show, like, oh my goodness, oh help, go away, like, it honestly made me think James was a female for a while. And also, James did have some pretty, I don't know, as I would call it, feminine-looking face expressions on the show, so, I don't know, it's just, I'm just talking from, like, you know, personal experiences, but am I the only person that ever thought James was a female? I guess I might be the only one. And also, I did mention this in my James A. Williams commentary episodes, but originally when Thomas and Friends was going to be dubbed in the US, they were considering having Edward be a female character. However, thankfully that didn't happen. And honestly, you know, I wouldn't want any of the characters to have their genders changed, but if I was to pick one character that would have their gender change, it would be James. I mean, come on. And then we get to Diesel 10, and he was originally going to be voiced by Australian voice actor Keith Scott. However, just like with P.T. Boomer, apparently test audiences thought that he was too scary for younger children. So they decided to cast Canadian voice actor Neil Crone to be the voice of Diesel 10 as well. And he also did the voice of Splatter, Gordon, and then a random tumbleweed character that could actually talk. Yeah, I'm not kidding, there's a sentient tumbleweed in the movie. And then American actor Patrick Breen was originally going to be the voice of both Splatter and Dodge. Out of all the voice actor changes, his was probably the only one that, like, wasn't really announced why that was changed. But anyways, in the actual movie, Splatter was voiced by Neil Crone, and then Dodge was voiced by Kevin Frank. But unfortunately for the movie, Thomas the Magic Railroad was both a box office and a critical failure. The movie's budget was $19 million. However, in total, its worldwide gross was $19.7 million. And that's not even counting all the promotional stuff they did with the the movie. So that was more than $19 million that they costed. So yeah, they unfortunately the movie didn't do well in terms of money, and then critics also criticized the movie for some of the same reasons that I'm personally, you know, not a fan of, like the inconsistent plots, the unnecessary Shining Time Station portions of the movie, and all that stuff. And that was another thing people complained about with the movie, was the inclusion of Shining Time Station. Since Thomas and Friends was made in the UK, Shining Time Station, the show that was responsible for bringing Thomas and Friends to American audiences, was obviously made in America. Also made by Britt Allcroft. So yeah, I personally didn't think it was a good idea to kind of combine both shows into a movie. I personally feel like, you know, just a straight-up Thomas movie would have been better, because even as a kid, you know, I was not that invested in the Shining Time scenes. A lot of the human characters weren't really that interesting to me, with the exception of Mr. Conductor and Junior, but, yeah, it just wasn't that interesting. It was kind of unnecessary, and not only that, you know, people outside the US won't even, like, understand what Shining Time Station is, and of course people who've never watched the show like I have will never understand the reference, so yeah, in terms of that, that movie is kind of a complete mess when it comes to trying to incorporate both shows. But in terms of the positive things that I have to say about this movie, yeah, I will say the Silver scenes are definitely really interesting. They're about as good as the TV show. And I know another thing, you know, critics complained about is, you know, oh, the engine's mouths don't move, what's up with that? I mean, they're kind of keeping true to the original series that Thomas and the Magic Railroad is based off of, so I don't really see that as a problem. And plus, it'll be kind of weird seeing live model engines, you know, moving mouths like, oh, hey, Gordon, how's your day doing today? Or something like that. I don't know, I kind of butchered that line a little bit, but yeah. I think the movie works perfectly fine with the engines, you know, having their faces, you know, not talking when, they're talking or whatever. I don't know, but you know what I mean. And plus, you know, and not just Thomas and Friends, but like a lot of classic British children's shows, you know, had a lot of characters, you know, that don't, you know, move their mouths when they talk. Classic Postman Pat, classic Fireman Sam, classic Naughty. I'm pretty sure the Wumbles was like this, the stop motion series, not the costume characters like I'm kind of familiar with, but yeah, that's the one thing I disagree with critics on, but yeah, the Soto scenes are great, the chase scene is awesome, definitely one of my favorite chase scenes in a movie alongside the one from The Wrong Trousers from Wallace and Gromit. And Diesel 10 is a great character, like, he's one of those villains that, like, you know, has, you know, a very devious side, you know, he's really, you know, very evil and he knows it, kind of even more devious than, Diesel from the TV show, you know, the black one, but, yeah, but he also can be really funny at times, you know, with this whole Pinchy thing, which, that part of the movie was actually improvised by Neil Crone, and the filmmakers loved it, so that they decided to incorporate that into the movie. And yeah, he was a great part of the movie. Definitely knew how to, like, you know, cut back between the evil and the hilarious. Especially one of the funniest scenes in the movie where he was like, "Okay, you two, I'm gonna teach you an important lesson. How to stop being stupid." And then his claw Pinchy then, like, you know, punches a coal hopper and then a bunch of coal that just drops all over Diesel 10. That's definitely one of the funniest scenes in the movie, in my opinion. And I also didn't mind Alec Baldwin's acting when it comes to Mr. Conductor. Like, I feel like he puts as much effort into his role of Mr. Conductor as he did with Season 5 of Thomas and Friends. If only Season 6 got the same treatment. Anyways, and also Michael E. Rogers, the guy who played Junior, he did a great job as well. To be honest, some of the other actors, not really as much. I know Peter Fonda has especially gotten some criticism for taking, you know, his Burnett Stone character, like, way, like, too depressing. He kind of made the character, like, all sad, like, yeah, you know, I hope Lady comes back, but Yeah, and the funny thing about Peter Fonda, I've heard he actually said that he really wanted to be in a children's movie, which is why he was, you know, pretty confident in wanting to be in Thomas and the Magic Railroad, so I do give respect for Peter Fonda for trying something different than what he has been known for doing, but yeah, I just kind of wish, you know, the human actors in the movie were a little bit better. And when it comes to the voices of the engines, I actually really like them, with the exception of James, of course, but I do like a lot of the choices they had for a lot of the characters. Diesel 10, I've already talked about how he was, and then Gordon, who was also voiced by Neil Crone, also did a pretty good job, you know, portraying Gordon how he is, kind of a pompous kind of engine. And then same thing with all the other characters. I kind of like the way Colm Farrow, I don't know how to pronounce his name, the guy who voiced Toby. I actually like the way he did his voice, and yeah, I don't think I really need to go into much else about the movie when it comes to the characters. The Sodor scenes are great, the Shine Time scenes, not that great, but yeah, the movie in general is just kind of a mixed bag for me. Oh, but wait. I actually have one more thing I actually want to, you know, critique the movie about. Well, actually, two more things that I want to critique. First off, you know, the fact that, you know, Thomas, the guy whose name is in the title, isn't even, like, you know, a huge part of the movie. Like, I personally feel like, you know, Mr. Conductor kind of had more of a big role in the movie than Thomas did. Like, it doesn't make any sense. It's Thomas and the Magic Railroad. Focus on Thomas and his friends. Like, come on. As much as I love the Sodor scenes, I just wish they took up a majority of the movie. Unlike, what we actually got, which, I think was a majority of the Shine Time moments, but... Anyways, and then the last critique I want to give about the movie, the fact that we don't have Edward as a character. That's right, out of all the main 7 characters from the first season, Edward wasn't in the movie. And I heard his model wasn't complete by the time they started recording the movie, but... yeah, it just, they could have, like, you know, delayed the movie until Edward's model was complete. Then they would have, like, you know, incorporated him into the plot, and not only that, maybe they would have, you know, fixed the script a little bit, maybe try to fix some of the plot holes that they made the movie do, now that, you know, P.T. Boomer wasn't in the movie, so, yeah. A lot of things would have, you know, made Thomas and the Magic Railroad somewhat slightly better, but unfortunately, it didn't happen. Now, I don't want any of you to think of me as the kind of person that, like, is trying to bash on this movie like the Nostalgia Critic was. I actually do genuinely have a soft spot for Thomas and the Magic Railroad, as I'm pretty sure a lot of other people in the Thomas community do as well. So, yeah, it's a guilty pleasure for me. You know, I enjoy it. It was a nostalgic journey for me rewatching it. I was glad I rewatched it, and yeah, it's a pretty decent movie. If I was to give it a score out of 10, I know I normally don't give any shows or anything that I've talked about previously any scores, but you know, since this is my first special of It Came From England, I'm gonna start giving scores for whatever I'm reviewing when it comes to the specials. Out of a score of 10, I will give Thomas and the Magic Railroad a simple 5 out of 10. Sodor scenes are cool, the engines are neat, the voice acting, besides James, is good. The live action portions could have, you know, been done a little bit better, especially the characters. Also, I think it would have been better if Shine Time was just completely cut out of the movie and just simply focus on Thomas. But regardless, I wouldn't mind watching this movie again, and I also would recommend it to any diehard Thomas fan out there. But if you're not a Thomas fan, you're probably not going to like the movie that much, but I personally enjoy it, and I'm sure people will for all eternity, probably. A couple other bonus facts that relate to the movie. It was apparently, like, not too long before the Thomas and the Magic Railroad was released, Destination Films, the company behind the movie, they were already considering making a sequel to the movie. However, it was quietly canceled due to the failure of Thomas and the Magic Railroad, so unfortunately we'll never get to see what happens with that. And also, when it comes to home video, there's been a variety of, you know, different releases of the movie on, you know, VHS and DVD. Like, for example, in the UK, the movie was released on VHS and DVD by Icon Home Entertainment through Warner Brothers Home Video. And here in the US, the VHS and DVD was distributed by Columbia Pictures. And also, later this year, Shout Factory is actually going to be releasing the movie on DVD and Blu-ray in honor of the 20th anniversary of the movie. It was supposed to come out June 9th, however, it got delayed to September 29th, so honestly, if any of you want to watch some Thomas and the Magic Railroad yourself, I would probably recommend pre-ordering the DVD and Blu-ray combo for that movie. And with that being said, I think that's officially about it for this review of Thomas and the Magic Railroad. I really hope you all enjoyed it. I have been waiting to talk about this movie for so long on here, and now I'm finally glad I did. So, happy 20th anniversary to Thomas and the Magic Railroad. That movie was such a huge part of my nostalgia, just like the Thomas and Friends TV show, and yeah, it holds a place in my heart, just like the show. So, yeah. So happy 20th to Thomas and the Magic Railroad, and then, of course, the most important part, happy 75th birthday to the Railway series, the books that Thomas and Friends is based off of. If it wasn't for these books, we would have never had Thomas and Friends, or Thomas and the Magic Railroad, or the many years that we have had with this character and the Island of Sodor and all other magical adventures. So, Reverend W. Audrey, if you're up there in heaven, thank you for making such a beloved book series become televised and become a huge worldwide phenomenon. I would like to thank you from the bottom of my heart. And also, rest in peace, Peter Fonda. I know I'm kind of a year late, but, yeah, definitely, thank you for contributing to the movie. To be honest, I wasn't a huge fan of your role, but, at least you were invested in the movie. So, Peter Fonda, I have huge respects for you. Rest in peace. Yeah, with that being said, I think that is now officially about it for this movie. Like I said, go see it for yourself if you want to. I'm not going to force you to do it, but go see it for yourself and make your own opinion about it. But with that being said, that is about it. I hope you enjoyed it. I'm a broken record at this point, but I don't care. If you enjoyed this review, feel free to give it a like and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more It Came From England content and, of course, my mediocre plush content. Leave a comment down below letting me know what you think about this really, really long review. Hopefully you enjoyed my very first It Came From England special, and I'll probably be doing more in the future. I know one that I do have planned in the future is Wallace and Gromit: The Curse of the Were-Rabbits, but I don't know if that'll be a reality anytime soon. But stay tuned for that, just in case. But with that being said, this is Tyler from the Character Workshop, signing out. And always remember the 3 magic words, everybody. Sparkle, sparkle, sparkle.
Reach for the speed, reach for the whistle, go where the rail may run. Reach for the words, reach for the story, follow the rainbow sun.